things I wanted to do before driving this thing is put this in. This is a proportioning valve for the brakes so that we can adjust brake bias. Right now there's no adjustment, and so we believe that the rear wheels are just going to lock up every time we hit the brakes. We don't want that to happen. So this will give us tuning so we can kind of move the brake bias forward or backward depending on what we want to do and how the car reacts. Pretty simple, it's just brake lines. So I'm going to cut the brake lines directly underneath the frame right there where I ran the real long one, and we'll stick this guy in there, mount it to the frame somehow, and that'll be it, and then it'll be ready to go. I got this roll of heat shield for the spark plug wires because they basically touch the headers and we want to keep them. This is basically just a barrier, a sacrificial barrier of sorts. It is heat protective, obviously, but it really just keeps us from having issues with these melting. So basically,
show them how to put the flaming torch on it.
All right, cool, we'll do that. We're gonna get this and cut it to length. I think all these wires are the same length based on what I've seen, but I'm not really sure. I'm not an LS guy. I'm cutting this with metal shears. It's like the only thing I could get that would cut it. And then there's a thread that runs all the way down through this holding on the Velcro, and if you don't melt it, the Velcro just falls off. How's the shot? Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. So we're just gonna lightly melt these down, and then I'm gonna melt this other end that I cut as well. And then this just goes like that. We'll fold that over, and now we have a shielded wire. All right, so now you can see, obviously, ultra close tolerances with our flipped exhaust. This stuff is just gonna be the barrier. Okay, this stuff's just gonna be the barrier in between that, keep stuff from melting. I'll probably slide this one up a little bit so that it gets in between the header and the wire, but I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna work. This one was the biggest issue back there. You see it's touching. All right, we'll do the other side and then that'll be it. And there we go. I've got this thing temporarily mounted because I got to see if the knob is going to clear. I don't think our frame actually sits on the ground when we sit this thing on the ground. So if not, I'd love to be able to reach under here and adjust it like at the track. But if we need to move it up, we will. But that's why I've just got one screw in there holding this thing on because I'm not sure. Eventually, we'll probably do like riv nuts and just screw it into the chassis that way. But for now, this is what we're going to do just to kind of do some testing and see. So that's done. Under here, you can't see, but yeah, there are. But we've got the shields on the spark plugs now. We've got the brake bias adjustment done. So now we can drop it down and do the wiring. And then that'll pretty much be it. I do have to put a battery in this thing. I gotta like do the main wiring. That's really easy. The biggest thing is just getting this switch panel wired. I don't know if I showed this in the last video, but we got this switch panel that we use. And we just got to get everything that's running the truck now wired, because right now we have to like plug 6 wires, or we have to like tie 6 wires together to start it. So we did the burnout last week, cut to that. That was all very sketchy in terms of getting the car to drive. So we'll fix that and get all our wires fixed and stuff so that when we do drive it, it doesn't blow up or wires don't rip out of the body like these right here. And that should be good to go. All right, to the wiring. leave this fan going because it is so hot in here. I'll try to just like project my voice so that it works with our sound, but it is unbelievably hot. We're in the middle of the summer. I'm gonna be sweating in this video. Just, that's fair warning. I've been working on the wiring for about 12 hours or so. I don't know, I've had to go on some work trips and stuff, and I've been out of town, not YouTube stuff, but my job, and so I haven't been able to work on this as much as I wanted to, but I've got everything working now, even though the wiring is absolutely a disaster. But I needed to get everything running and tested before I did it for real. And so now we're gonna do it for real, which basically just means unhooking everything I've done, sheathing it, making it neat, making it the right length, getting it mounted, and putting it into the car in its final resting place. I think it's gonna look pretty good. I'm doing some things not like you would do a factory car. So a lot of, what I mean by that is the relays that run each thing, the fuel pump, the fan, I guess that's the only ones I really have. I'll have a relay for the actuators as well, but I'm putting them close to whatever it is they run. So instead of having like a relay block and sending power out from the block, I'm just putting the relay right next to the thing that it runs. It'll just be easy to diagnose when something goes wrong. So that's why I'm doing that. I basically have it set up to a switch on the inside that cuts on a fuse panel that runs everything. And that's how it's gonna work. And I think it's gonna work really well. All right, so I spent the other day wiring. I tested everything and then loomed it and then ran it through the body. I've got grommets right here that the wires go through. There's a fuse panel. There will be like a center console that will cover the fuse panel and all that stuff inside. And then it goes out through the back of the cab and to the battery. There's still a little bit of wiring to do. I've got about 16 hours in this, which I know it's crazy. It's so simple, but it's just been a lot of wiring and testing and all that stuff. Plus, every time I use relays, I have to reteach myself how they work. I don't know. Maybe I'll get it one day. So anyway, that's good. It does work, but it's not fully wired yet. I had to buy some wire and some tools, and I ran out of some supplies, so we'll finish that up today. I'm gonna take a break from the wiring for a second to do something a little more fun, and that is put on an intake. I got a really sick intake that I'll show you. It's right over here. This, I was going to buy like a filter and just a universal tube, but I found an intake for a 1500, like Chevy GMC, and it was like 60 bucks, which is pretty good. So it's all black because I think it looks cool. It's like a crinkle black color. We're gonna put this on, see if I can find a way to route it. It is made specifically for like a GM truck, so we'll have to kind of figure something out here. But I'm gonna do that because I think it'll be more fun than wiring. I just need a break from wiring. And then we'll get back into wiring and get all that sorted. And then with the mass airflow intake and the wiring done, technically the truck will be ready to run, but we're having a fueling issue, so we'll hunt that down, and then we should be good to drive it. Hopefully by the end of the day. All right, after much deliberation, this is how we're gonna run it. It's not ideal, I guess, because we're gonna be getting air blowing through the radiator into the filter, but running it over the radiator like I had it at first worked until I plugged everything up, and then it just doesn't clear. So if this ends up being an issue, if we're pulling in too much hot air, then we'll just modify that and be able to basically set the air filter directly on top of the radiator. I think this is gonna be okay. The only issue that I'm seeing, come over here and show you, is gonna be the exhaust. Comes out right here and then it'll turn down or do something. And so we'll have to put a heat shield in to just protect it from the exhaust. And it came with like an air box. It's pretty thick metal. It's anodized, or not anodized, but powder coated. So we'll probably use that and repurpose that in here somewhere as a heat shield, at least as long as we run it this way. If that ends up being a problem, or when we start building exhaust, the air filter's getting in the way, then we'll have to make some sort of custom piece to move it and angle it down so when this folds up, it doesn't hit and crush the filter. But I think this is gonna work for now. It'll at least get us going, and we can cross clearance issues with exhaust when we build the exhaust. But for now, this is gonna be the way it goes. I know it looks kind of funky how it like makes a U, and that's probably not good for airflow, but given that this is just a factory engine, I don't think it's gonna matter. And if it does, again, we'll just change it, but I'm happy with that for now. I do need to make some sort of mounts to support this thing, because right now it's only being supported by the rubber clamp, but there are some tabs that I can use to mount back to the block that I think will work. I don't know, I think it'll work just fine. All right, so that's done. Fun part's over. Now, back into wiring this thing and hopefully getting it to start. Another 2 hours and the wiring is done. This is why this video is taking me so long, is because there's just so much wiring and it's just not interesting to watch. So you guys get to skip through it, I didn't. But we've got everything clean now, all the way underneath the car. So we've got wires running to the front, wires running to the back, all of it's sheathed, all of it's protected, all of it looks good. Now, we've got to drop the cab back down, tidy up all the wiring inside, and then we'll be able to start it from inside the truck. I made a little adapter. This is just like fuel line that goes into a union that goes into the AN fitting. I've got to order another LS AN fitting, so we'll get that. This is just temporary, but I've got everything wired up properly now, and we have a normal fuel pressure coming to the fuel gauge. Unfortunately, we're out of gas, so I gotta go get more gas before we can test fire. We've got our final resting place for this as well. I cut this thing down. I'm gonna have to trim this mount off, but this is where it's gonna be. It kind of makes a weird turn, but that puts the filter right in this area. It clears everything that we need to clear, and I think that's gonna work fine for now. We may duct it later, do something cool, but for now, that is gonna be it. All the wiring is complete, so you can see no more wires hanging down here, no more wires hanging down there. It all runs neatly with the harness back to the back of the car, and everything is sheathed and protected. We go back to the car. You can see I have some shocks up here. They are mounted to the original mounts, but we don't have mounts welded onto the axle yet, so that is Chase's job. He's a much better welder than me, so he's gonna weld those on. We've already got tabs cut over there. He's not here right now. He's taking care of his kids, so he's gonna get that done probably off camera. We'll just have those in. We can't drive it right now because the airbags, when you air them up, are super bouncy, and we need something to stabilize that. It'd be like riding around on springs with no shocks. So that'll get stabilized, and you can see kind of why it's taking so long to do this video, because there's just so much stuff that has to be done before I can feel like I can safely drive this. This is not gonna be like a test drive, kind of put it down the road drive. It's gonna be a go for it drive and see what breaks. So it should be really fun, pretty scary, but I'm trying to make sure we've got everything done because I don't wanna create more problems for myself. You can see I'm pulling 4 individual powers from here. I could probably simplify this with 1. Maybe we'll do that, but they run down here. This is like everything that runs off of battery power. So all my relays and stuff run to this fuse panel and then go out. So that protects them because they're not fused to the power, if that makes sense. And then that yellow wire is a big 10 gauge, runs into the cab. You can actually see it going up through there because I didn't sheath it yet. I don't know if I will. To that fuse panel, which I need to screw down, so I'll do that next. And that runs all my switches. So if you go up this way, you can see all my switches go there. And if we, the cab is up right now, so I'm kind of stuck. But if we, let me get you guys, here we go. Cut this on. That's my fuel pump. We got fan, fuel pump, and then crank, but it won't really, it might run, let's see. Yeah, we're out of gas, so we will run it, but you can hear it cranks very easy now with the new fuel system. And then if you run out, most importantly, we have a battery. Now, we don't have a gas tank yet. We do have one here. That's not great, but we may be able to use it. But we do have a battery, so I'm gonna have to find a tie down or a plate or something for that, so we can tie that thing down, because it could just topple out into the road. And I think that's everything. So the list of things to do now, to do here, is gonna be mount the shock so that we can drive it down the road safely, mount the bed because the front is not mounted, the back is, but the front is just completely loose. So we gotta find a mount there. Those are both kind of Chase jobs. He's better at welding, so I'm gonna let him weld those things up. Like I said, all the wiring's done, which is great. It will run now. All the switching is done, labeled, real nice. Brakes are done. We can shift with a shifter. Let me show you our current shifter setup. We haven't really figured out what to do about shifting yet, but there it is, vice grips down there. Fuel, brakes, shift, wiring, intake, mass airflow, it all works. It all works. This has been a 5-year job in the making, and not that I've been working on it straight for 5 years. I've completed a dozen other cars since then, but this thing was just such a massive project, and I didn't know how to do anything when I started it, and so I've had to kind of take breaks to learn things, and then come back, and that's what we're doing now. And I think I finally learned enough to get this thing on the road and not die. So that's the goal. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'm gonna go get some more fuel, I think. Feels right. Go get some more fuel, we'll test fire it, and then maybe wire the gauges up so that I at least need coolant temperature and oil pressure. Those are the only two gauges I really care about when running an engine like this for the first time, trying to get a temperature and drive it down the road. Those are the only two that matter. So we're gonna wire those two up for sure. We may go ahead and wire everything up, I don't know. And get those working, and then take it for a drive. The whole point of this video is to drive it, so that's why I've skipped over so much of this work. I have been working a lot, and I know it probably feels like I haven't, or I've ditched you guys. I have not, I promise. It's just been so much work to get it from like 80% to 100% as far as like getting it to go drive down the road, getting it from burnout to take it on the road safely and drive it. It's a big jump. So gas, we'll test fire it, and then it's just a matter of more fabrication to get this thing drivable, and then me and Chase will hop in it and go for a drive. It's gonna be great. I'm ready to be on the road. The final piece of the puzzle for the wiring setup is going to be just sensors. So we have a coolant sensor over there, it's the green wire, oil pressure rather, that's the yellow, and then a ground that grounds our gauges. That all runs up to the gauges up here. We'll connect those in a minute. This is just kind of a test fire. Now we're gonna go around. I haven't powered these gauges up in years, so gotta check and make sure it works. I plugged them into our fuse panel here. Let's see, I'm laying down right now, so. And there we go. We've got gauges. Let's see what happens. Fuel pump. Fan works. That doesn't seem to change anything. Let's see what happens when we start it. Oh, there's gas in it. Everything looks good but the temperature. The temp says 37 currently. I didn't use the temp sensor provided because we lost it. So maybe we can figure out the baseline there and get that sorted. Now you notice the RPMs isn't working. That's because I have to plug it into the ECU, which I will do. The speedometer is the same way. We'll get plugged to the ECU. Volts is working perfectly, which is cool. And then fuel, we don't have our fuel tank in yet. When we do, we'll just plug that in. So that looks great. I think that's gonna work great. Next is just gonna be wiring it up permanently. So we're gonna fish the wires through like we did everything else, run them in here, and then use a nice connector on the back so that we can pull this thing off and replace it if we ever need to. All right, we got a bigger gas tank, so we're gonna try starting it now. We actually haven't run this thing since doing all the new fuel pump and wiring and everything, so we'll see how that was. Let me get to take this cover off. Yeah. Don't want to do that again. Yeah, you should just be good to go. Hit the fuel pump. Let me watch the pressure real quick. Keep going. Perfect. What? Oh, turn it off, turn it off.
It's off.
Oh, geez.
It'll be a super unfortunate time for there to be a spark in here.
Well, my adapter didn't work. It works up to 40 pounds. All right, let me fix that. We had another adapter. This is just temporary. I went ahead and ordered the right thing. Thought I already had ordered it, but I didn't. Let's see. I'm gonna stand back a little bit. All right, you can turn it off. We're leaking. Down here, I gotta tighten that up. All right, try it again. Oh, off, off. Where is that coming from?
The other nipple that doesn't have anything hooked to it?
Wonder what we do with that.
The return.
It's leaking everywhere. All right. So we're leaking down here at this little return area, which I didn't think we needed anymore, according to the internet. We're not leaking here anymore. you go down, we're leaking at the fuel area, we'll just tighten that up. That's fine. So I gotta figure that out. All right, last attempt of the day. We super glued a bolt into there, clamp that on, clamp those on. Let's see. Again, this is highly temporary. No, not even close. Nope, off. And it's leaking. All right, so we're gonna pause until Thursday. Thursday, I'll get the fitting for this. That'll plug into our fuel system, and then we can just clamp that off with a legitimate bolt. Get it going. This is the nature of getting cars running. There's just like a million things that have to work. And when you fix one thing, something else shows up. So I'm gonna finish wiring this thing, and then we'll come back and finish the fuel and then start it and maybe drive it. All right, so I went and ordered the correct fitting here. We've got the correct fitting down here as well. This I just have blocked off with a bolt. You can get caps for AN fitting, so I may do that because it would just be way cleaner than this, but I think this is gonna work for now. And then we've got that run to our fuel system. I tightened up the fuel lines back there. The fuel should work. Another thing I did to get our gauges wired is I made up these plugs, just like that. It's a Deutsch connector. We've got one up here that corresponds to our gauges. And I've labeled every single wire so we know what all of them do without looking at any sort of diagram. So we'll plug that in. You can see there's 11 wires going into this one, and there's only like 5 going into that one. A lot of these are like your headlights, blinkers, different indicators that we don't have in the truck yet. And then the speedometer, which we don't have in the truck yet either. So those can be added later. These plugs are disassemblable, and so we can add those in. But for now, it's just gonna be these. These are super nice. You can literally just plug them in. Let's see, go up this way. It's gonna take 2 hands. Looks like I made it. There we go. I made it a little bit too tight. There's not a lot of play there, but there is enough. So I'll probably go ahead and tape these up to the labels just to make it a little bit neater. There you go. So that's plugged in now. We can do some testing. Go ahead and lower the bed. Or the cab, I mean. So much easier using the button. When you lower it, that's what I'm watching. There's a standoff right here, and we want those two to touch. There you go. So that's fully lowered. Now, battery is connected, so if we sit in here, we should be able to test all of this. Zoom out a little bit. There we go. For some reason, for the LS, this is supposed to be set to 4-cylinder. Maybe it's wasted spark or something, I don't know. But that all looks good. We'll check fuel. This could be dangerous. One of the reasons I pointed that up right there is so that if it does leak, we'll know very quickly. Doesn't sound like our fuel is plugged up back here. That I think that is the draw, and that is going to be a return right there. All right, so we'll try that again. There it goes. Oh God, jeez. All right, not sufficient. Let's see what kind of pressure we built up. Yeah, 50 pounds. So that's where it needs to be. We've just got to figure out how to get it to stop leaking. Let's just check this one more time. I'll get sprayed with fuel again, but just want to make sure it's leaking where I think it's leaking. Yeah, at the bolt. Okay. All right. So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to tighten that up or something. make it sealed, and then we should be able to idle the car, which is just insane, just insane. Whew, this has been such a job. All right, let's do it. All right, I added a bigger bolt and a tighter clamp, ran it for a bit, and other than it doing some weird jumping from 50 to 58, we're holding pressure, which is great. So that means it should start, and it should idle, it should run. We've never been able to do that before. It also means we can run it up to temperature because we have a sensor in that may not be the most accurate, but we'll at least be able to see what the temperature's doing if it gets out of hand. So the only things we have to do to drive it, the only thing we have to do to drive it will be mount this guy and mount these shocks back here. So after that, I think there was one more thing to mount. Oh, the bed, yeah, and then we'll be ready to go. So I guess I'm gonna try to figure that out next. Oh, and we can take this guy off of here. Oh, and we can take this guy off of here. Awesome. We're getting closer to driving it. Chase still has some jobs to do. I'm gonna help him. I'm gonna make some quick brackets for the radiator, so it's gonna be very simple. We'll just cut a notch out of there, stick it on the frame, lop the top off wherever it needs to be cut, and presto changeo. First, we gotta cut this notch out. And that should do what I need it to do. Take this over here, and it's gonna go on there like that. Should be more than strong enough to hold up our radiator. And then we've got this tab here that I'll actually bend back this way, screw in, and done. I am gonna cut this off up here because there's no sense in having all this extra metal. So we're just gonna do a rough mark here. One more snap, and there we go. So we'll weld that in. Should be ultra strong, and we'll mount the bottom of the radiator to it. And I think it's just gonna be good enough. We'll make another one for the other side, and then we can weld them in. All right, there we go. Even without screws, it's solid. It'll lean this way, but to get this thing out, you're gonna have to actually slide it forward and then up because of the notches that I made right there, just so it would fit a little better, but I think it's gonna work just fine. I only tacked it in place. Gonna double check, let Chase look over this and see if he likes it. If so, we'll weld it up. And yeah, probably just run self-tappers through for now, and then it'll get either a nut and bolt or a riv nut. And that'll be the mount for that. So there you go, that's done. And pull, boom. Now just the bed and the shocks, and we can drive it. It's getting hot. All right, so we'll mount the bed, we'll mount the shocks, and then it should be drivable. I'm gonna do some experimenting with the shocks back here and see if we can use where they already have the mounts, the previous owner put mounts. If we can use that, we'll roll with it. If not, we may have to move those. All right, move right along. All right, one more solution in the books. I moved all my wiring up on top of the frame rail. I wanted to hide it, that's why I went under originally, but I think this is gonna be so much safer. We're gonna put a tonneau cover over this. We'll make one, I guess, and put it over this so you won't see all this stuff. And for that reason, I just went with the most clearance possible. That also allows us to run our shocks in the current mounts, which means we don't have to modify those mounts, which will save time. Now all we have to do is build a mount on the axle to hold the shock, and that will be done. It'll be very simple. It doesn't have to be crazy, it doesn't have to be fancy. I think a little piece of like angle L bracket with a hole in it is all we need. We may do two and sandwich it, or maybe just one. I've seen some factory shocks that only have a mount through one side, so maybe we'll do that. I don't know, but we'll do that. That will stabilize the rear, which will allow us to drive, because right now it would just like do that. So we'll stabilize that, which I may go ahead, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and make those brackets. And then all we'll have to do is find a way to mount the bed, and then we'll be able to drive it. So shock mounts next. I'll make them out of this. Okay, been a couple hours, done a little bit of work. I rerouted the air intake yet again because we had to move the radiator back, so my brackets, I'll set that down. My brackets will have to get remade. You can see I had it up there, but it was hitting this bar, so we'll have to mount it where it is now. And I think we can still use brackets similar to this one. We just have to run them all the way up just to give it some more support, and I think that that will work fine. This is all good, fuel's good now. I tidied up some of the wiring in here. This is gonna get a cover, but for now, that's good. It's not gonna cause any problems. And then I tacked in these brackets here. So now the shocks are mounted, but not for real. We'll have to fully weld those, but we got all this stuff done. The next thing is gonna be getting the beds secured, and then we'll weld all that up and we can go for a drive. Gauges seem to be working. Alternator's working, which is good. Oil pressure seems to be reading okay. This one's not, these two are not hooked up, but RPM works, which is great. Temperature is working, but I don't know if it's accurate. I didn't use the right temperature sensor, so we'll just have to watch it and see. It's probably not gonna read correctly. It was reading like 32 with the engine off. And I feel like it should have been like 80, so we'll see what happens. I'm just gonna watch it. I'm assuming this is about 40 degrees off, so I think that the engine is about 151 right now. I'm gonna let it get up to 220, see how it does, see if it's able to cool itself off. The idle's sounding better though, that's good. This has never idled before since we put the engine in. We've never had it idle, so we did it right, we wired it right. Nothing's smoking and nothing's on fire, so that's good. The revs still sound really rough though, like if I just tap the throttle. Not great. Like it's hesitating a little bit. Yeah, I don't like that. We're gonna compression test this thing. It did sound bad, but we realized that 4 of our 8 spark plugs were loose, and a couple of wires were not fully connected either. So that's probably why. But after what we did to this engine, we feel like it deserves a compression test. So we'll do that real quickly. We need something to stand on. All right, ready? More?
So 130, there's like 180.
180?
Yeah.
That's good, I think. Let's write it down. Is that cylinder 1? How do they number these? Okay, well, we'll do it like this.
I was about to say, for the sake of this, make it real simple. 180.
It's a LS, man. It's the reason people love them. All right, so 6 was 180. 2 more to go. All right, final one. 185. I mean, that's pretty good news, I think.
That seems ridiculous.
Have we ever changed the spark plugs on this thing? Like, these are the ones that were in it.
Yeah, these are just the ones from the junkyard 4 years ago.
This is what was in there. Look at that gap, dude. It's insane. We had some pre-gapped ones here at the shop, and I'm betting this is going to be better. I mean, I'm not actually expecting it, but it would be so sick if we started it up after doing this and it just like, yeah, revved out. It'd really sell me on the LS setup.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I'm gonna get sold or scarred by the Coyotes.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Sure. It's recording. All right, new plugs. Everything's plugged in now. Let's see what happens. All right, we got it idling again. It still kind of sounds the same. Let's see how it revs. That sounds a little better. That sounds a lot better. The revs sound better, but the startup is still bad. So we're gonna check it with an OBD scanner, I think. Yeah, we're gonna scan it with an OBD scanner, which we have on this car, which is funny to me. And then we'll see what it says. Maybe we got like a dead coil or something, I don't know. We'll check and see. Knocking things out. It does sound better, it does rev way better now. So that's good. Okay, unfortunately, no codes at all. So it's running great. So yeah, I'm not sure why it's not starting or not staying running. You have to give it a little gas, but the revs did sound better. Oh. Engine coolant temp circuit high out input.
Ah.
I don't know. I guess we got to do it the old-fashioned way.
It might have to run longer before it throws the
Maybe it
cage.
just needs an Italian tune-up.
What that means?
You just floor it, rev it, redline it.
Yeah. Well, it might give us a code.
If we let it run.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that. Let's get the fan working though. What did you say? What was the first line?
Didn't know you were recording. I wouldn't have said any of it. I said it's not.
She ain't pretty.
But
She ain't falling off either. We decided to go ahead and just tack these, or not tack these, but run a bead on these mounts so that they can hold, so we can drive it, because we're both ready to drive it. It's just time. It's time. We also tacked the bed back to the cab right here. We'll get the other side too, and then that'll hold it in place so it doesn't cut our tires up, and we should be able to drive it today, which I wasn't actually expecting, so very stoked about it. All right, let's air it up. We should check our fan. I'm gonna turn the fan on. Nothing?
Nothing.
See if the fuse is blowing back here. All right, relay wasn't plugged in on the fan, so we got the fan working now. We've got it aired up into 4x4 mode. Plenty of ground clearance. And we've got our tested and approved fuel tank. Some trash in the back. Probably clear this out. And it is officially time to drive the Fatsun for the first time ever. Doesn't feel real, definitely feels scary, but I think it all works. We've tested and checked. This is what time it is. This is the time. All right. A little bit of gas. 1200 RPM. You in reverse? How confident are you?
Oh, not at all. Not even a little bit.
All right, let's. Oh, hey-o. You got it?
I'm that confident.
Yeah. The brakes are average. The transmission shifts okay. The gas pedal feels awful. We're gonna go for it. Oh, that's forward.
Oh, did we put power steering fluid in?
Let the road clear up a little. Wheels. All right, we're okay. That wheel is not connected.
Sick.
All right.
Let's take a walk.
What?
The whole thing.
Gonna be honest, this is about how I thought the first test drive would go. But it could have been worse. Look at it. Majestic.
I hope these back ones are tighter than the front ones, because they're a different size.
Oh no. pretty hot. First gear feels really good, but as it shifts up, you just lose transmission. There's like no, I don't know what's going on, but I mean, the engine's running good. The front wheels are doing this, and we have no idea why. So I think that's gonna be it for test drive number 1. We gotta sort through some suspension stuff. Steering actually feels good. I was just nervous to like whip on it because I was literally watching the wheels do this, but steering feels good. Exhaust is unbelievably loud in there. Like I can't even explain it. And the heat is almost unbearable. So it's great, it's a great car.